and the public. We will start this morning's Operations Committee meeting. I'll start with a karakia. Tuia ki ronga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho. Tuia tātou te tangata, kei te kaupapa o te hui nei, kei te kaupapa o te rangi nei, mōri ora kia tātou katoa. That translates to bind above, bind below, bind within, bind beyond, bind us the people to the purpose of our meeting, to the purpose of this day, breathe life into all of us. I'd just like to acknowledge that our later start this morning was due to our council held a mihi whakatau for Channel Starkey. So it is quite a significant milestone for the Tasman District Council this morning to welcome Channel to being a member of the Operations Committee, and we look forward to working with you. So just like to acknowledge Channel. Welcome to those here in the chambers and on Zoom. I see we have Councillor Hill and Councillor Butler on Zoom this morning. Just a reminder that the meeting is being recorded and can be accessed on the Council's YouTube channel. Remember to keep your microphone off unless you're speaking. The reason for that is we can't have too many on at once, but you do need to turn your microphone on to speak. Otherwise, participants on Zoom are unable to get the sound. Toilets and fire exits. So toilets are out here to the left, fire exit out here. Just a reminder that the media are present. So I shall now call for any apologies. We do have an apology this morning from Mayor Tim King. Are there any other apologies? All right, thank you. So do we have a mover for those apologies? Moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Ellis. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. We will now move to the public forum. And firstly, we have Marie McNabb. So I'll invite Marie to come to the table. Just a reminder in terms of the public forum, people have 5 minutes to speak. I'll give you a bit of a wave at 4.5 minutes. So over to you. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you. My name's Marie. I've been a resident of Queen Street for 21 years now. I've been personally affected by the recent installation of cycle lanes. This is why I started this petition. I've had to get a fence moved to accommodate extra parking for visitors at a cost to myself. I've also at times had to park on side roads. Next. This has affected not just me, but my elderly neighbours whose friends can't visit. Next. One of the elderly neighbours, who is a widower, sells plants to keep busy. Now no one is stopping to buy his plants as there is nowhere to park. Next. A neighbour has had to remove trees and hedges so they can fit all their vehicles on their property. This has been at a cost of nearly $1,000. This is also so their mobility impaired mother can have closer access to their house. Next. Some of my neighbours now have to park on their lawn as they can't park on the road. This is killing their grass. Another neighbour had a garage sale and not many people came as there was nowhere to park. Next. Tradespeople, courier drivers, caregivers don't have anywhere to park if there is no on-street parking. Next. There are some health and safety concerns that I have and other people have. With daylight savings finishing this weekend and it getting dark earlier, women are vulnerable where they're walking home at night from side streets. Side streets have also become congested with vehicles. Hunter Ave turns into a one-way street at times. The further away a vehicle is parked from a home, the more vulnerable it is to vandalism. Next. With no on-street parking, this lowers the value of homes. If you have an open home, where do potential clients park? And where do removal trucks park once a house is sold? Next. Businesses are suffering. Next. The owner of Henley store wants angle parking back as there is now only limited parking. The owner of the Queen Street fish supply said that people are not stopping there anymore because of the parking situation. The owner of Richmond Antiques and Curios said that they will be out of business within a year or two. Next. Bikes are still biking on footpath. Having been a bike rider myself in the past, I've noticed there is not enough cyclists to justify cycle lanes. This is not just my opinion, but many residents' opinion. Personally, the cycle lanes are not going to encourage me to get back on my bike. Next. A neighbour and myself spent 5 nights door knocking up Queen Street and Champion Road between Salisbury and Hill Street. We have 135 signatures on paper. 709 people signed an online petition. This brings the total of signatures to 844 people wanting a change. Next. Every household we went to on Queen Street signed the petition, apart from 5 households. That's a lot of signatures. They would agree with this question I have for you. How would you feel if cycle lanes were placed outside your house and it devalued your property? You couldn't have visitors, barbecues, garage sales, tradespeople couldn't come to your place, or elderly friends couldn't come to your place because there's nowhere to park. Next.
We're at 4.5.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So residents would like future cycle lanes halted until public consultation is given to the residents it affects. Put pamphlets in residents' letterboxes regarding holding a meeting to discuss this. We'd like on-street parking back and temporary cycle lanes reversed, or as a compromise, take one lane out and leave one in. Put pamphlets in residents' letterboxes regarding holding a meeting to discuss this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Marie, for taking the time to come in this morning and present your petition for the public forum. All right, we'll move on now to Sally Hargraves. Welcome, Sally. So same situation applies, 5 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a shout out at 4.5 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Sally Hargraves. I'm a resident in Mapua. My petition calls for the removal of the recently placed planter boxes from the streets from Mapua. I'm just going to read out the petition and then just comment on the results. Council recently installed a number of planter boxes along Aranui Road as part of the NZTA-funded Streets for People project. When asked what their purpose is, they responded as follows. They serve three purposes. One, on the roadside, they encourage slower vehicle speeds, improving safety as it makes the road feel narrower. Two, they protect sightlines at vehicle crossings and pedestrian crossings. Planter boxes are lower than a parked car, and so this ensures drivers will always be able to see a safe distance up the footpath when turning into driveways. Three, add to the visual amenity on the road by adding some greenery. Since their installation, the planter boxes have been the focus of a lot of community frustration. The frequently voiced opposition includes they're not visually appealing. They will require frequent maintenance and watering, especially in summer months. There's increased hazard in several key areas, i.e. outside the Mapua Hall, outside the garage, outside the preschool, where they reduce the visibility to motorists coming onto Aranui Road. They block access for road sweeping machines, which are used to collect the leaves that regularly block the drains outside the playground, resulting in increased frequency of flooding. They make access to the roadside parking much trickier, resulting in fewer cars being able to park. When cycling, they create extra obstacles to be negotiated, often with reduced visibility of what's on the far side. As they're located where cars are usually parked, they have no effect on narrowing the road and no impact on vehicle safety. If they're needed to define parking zones, there are much better ways to do this. You can use yellow lines or white painted parking bays, both of which have been used successfully in Mapua previously. I published this petition on a local community Facebook page and got over 100 signatures in a 2-week period, 63 of whom also added comments, with half of these comments including words like dangerous, hazard, and unsafe. Obviously, I presume you've all seen the petition with all the comments. What I'd like to see is the boxes fully removed from our streets while the decision is made on the future of the rest of the Streets for People project. There's a box storage area on the corner of Aranui Road and Tahi Street, and it would take lift and shift a couple of hours to move these. That's it.
All right, thank you very much, Sally, for taking the time this morning to come in and present your petition. All right, we shall now move to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? No, thank you. We have no late items. We have some minutes. And they are the minutes of our Operations Committee meeting held on the 22nd of February. Do we have someone to move that they are a true and correct record? Moved Councillor Maru, seconded Councillor Dowler. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. This now takes us to our reports. We're going to start off with the community infrastructure report, and we will do it section by section as normal. And so we will start with the management section, and I shall hand over to you for that, Mr. Kirby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to welcome a couple of staff members, new staff members that have come onto the team. The first one is Claire Tolan. Claire, stand at the back there. Claire's the new project manager within the program delivery team, a local person, so welcome, Claire. Also, Reese van der Vaart, new property officer. Reese is filling in for Danny while she's on maternity leave for the next 12 months, so welcome, Reese. Yeah. So if you have any questions in relation to any of the projects or with property and everything, obviously Reese is, and Claire are available. So thank you, Reese and Claire. Also, just to let you know, Carl Borter, who was a water engineer, has applied for and been promoted to the team leader within the water and waste team. He's taken over from Becky, who went to Downer earlier this year. And the interesting thing is Becky is still working on the same work that she was doing, except for the contractor side instead for us this time. So that's it. We've currently got 2 vacancies yet to be advertised, a project manager to replace Matt Keys. Matt Keys went on 12 months unpaid leave over to the UK, but obviously likes it over there and just put his resignation in. So we've now got the vacancy to fill. and also the replacement for Carl, who's been promoted to team leader. So those will be advertised hopefully within the next week or so. So thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps I'll just comment, I haven't got it on the report. The Three Waters review is still ongoing. The government is setting up a local government advisory team. Some of us are involved in that to advise the government on the new legislation. So I think we have our first meeting next week. As you know, Local Waters Well Done is the new name for the Three Water activities. And we will wait and see how that transpires. Obviously, as you know, councils are being encouraged to work together. Who we work with and how it works out and what the structures are still to be confirmed. But in the meantime, the services still be provided by our contractors. So that's from me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Richard. So we're really only dealing with pages 6 and half of 7, but any questions or clarification from members for Richard? No, all right, thank you. So we'll now move on to one of our favourite topics, transportation. Welcome, Jamie. So I'll hand over to you for your section of the report. And so this is pages 7 through to 29. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, committee members. Happy to take the report as read and answer any questions. I'll just draw your attention again, though, to paragraph 4.4, where I've alluded to the fact that staff are having to very carefully manage our maintenance costs through to the end of financial year. One area we've identified as being controllable in terms of the costs is roadside mowing. The reason I wanted to bring that to your attention is it can be quite noticeable for people if we're reducing our mowing quantities. So what we are doing is focusing on mowing areas that are of more concern, so that impact safety, so near intersections and on busier routes. But there will be some roads with less traffic that probably won't get a mow until the new financial year. So we're ready to deal with those sorts of queries, and just want to bring that to your attention. So yeah, happy to take questions.
All right, any questions from members for Jamie? Oh, was that nod of the head? Was that signalling a question, Councillor Maru?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It may well have been. So just to work that through, Jamie, so certainly that was a regular complaint to the community board about some of the roads in Motueka and roadside curve of roadside mowing. And so will all intersections get done, or will we make a call that some intersections we will leave to grow and will be unsafe? Is that what?
No, we won't accept compromising safety at any intersections that require mowing.
Right.
Yeah, that's not to say every intersection needs to be mowed, because there will be some where the roadside grass might not really impact safety to any degree. But no, we're not prepared to compromise safety. We will be compromising the look or amenity of the road.
So for clarity through you, Madam Chair, so if there's a service request that's based on somebody in a low car can't see line of sight because of the height of the roadside grass, that service request will get mown.
Most likely, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maru. Deputy Mayor Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to refer you, if I may, through you to Jamie. Firstly, Jamie, just in relation to the Appleby cycle bridge, had the fortune to walk over it recently. It is very swaying compared to the bridge up at the back. And is there nothing we can do to retrofit it to make it more stable? Because I could see if someone was a bit apprehensive, they would get a bit squirmish, for the want of a better word. Even walking was bad enough.
Yeah, you're quite right. Through the chair. Yeah, it's always been quite a lively bridge in that, and that incident that's referred to in the report has really prompted us to look harder at what could be done. There are some things that can be done. We just need to make sure we can afford to do that within our available budgets. So we can add some. I think we've described them as torsion bars, or just kind of tie it together a little more firmly. They're always going to be lively structures, and anyone who's used swing bridges kind of will know that. There is a limited amount you can do. You know, we're not going to be able to remove liveliness altogether, unfortunately. So there's always going to be a risk of that type of structure, but it comes down to, you know, the cost and the benefit that we might get from it.
Thank you. And then just in relation to Wensley Road, which you've got about the work we've done there, and then I see today there's going to be further work starting 8th of April. It seems to be the road that keeps on giving. Is there any opportunity to have the contractors start after the commuter traffic, like 9 a.m? Because it seems to just cause chaos for that sort of 2 hours between 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Yeah, through the chair. So the work that was completed up there in the last month or so, the traffic management arrangement gave the contractor a window of time after the morning peak and before the afternoon peak to try and get the work done. So it was basically 9 till 3. What they found was that period is not sufficient to actually do the work efficiently. So we faced the choice of continuing to try and do it that way, and the work taking potentially twice as long and, you know, costing 50% more than it needed to, or we can be a little bit more disruptive with the traffic management and get the work done faster and cheaper for the council. You know, again, trying to control the costs to ratepayers, or the direct cost to ratepayers. So it's an unfortunate fact of the work that needs to be done, and the fact that we want to get that done as efficiently as possible. So yeah, we did talk this through in a lot of detail. It's just the nature of the type of work that needs to be done within that 6-hour period, and then getting out of the site. It just wasn't possible to do all of the individual tasks involved in setting up, digging out, recompacting, sorting through the potentially contaminated coal tar layers. There was a lot built in, and they just couldn't achieve it.
So what's going to happen from the 8th, which I think is Monday, isn't it? Is that going to be some work schedule? Or?
So the way that the work is planning to be done is by having a one-way traffic flow on Wensley Road.
Again.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then just in relation to the about the seatbelt stimulator, it was really a bit of kudos that Jen got asked to go to Northland and present up there and demonstrate. So yeah, pass on our congratulations to her. Seems like really good work, and I know wherever I've seen it, she gets a really good following, and people are really interested in that. So it's a good news story. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bryant. Councillor Dowler.
Thank you. First of all, first one is the Mapua Ferry coming up for the renewal coming up. Is there any chance for it getting altered in its movements? Like it's on the hour, I understand, at the moment. Once an hour, it goes backwards and forwards. Quite often I go out there and have a look on the weekend, and there's a guy sitting there reading the book. You look across at Jackets Island, and there might be 10 people waiting for Rabbit Island, sorry, 3/4 of an hour before the ferry chugs across and picks them up. Surely it would be more efficient and possibly profitable if it was run every half an hour, because I know some people in Motueka just won't go there because they've got to wait so long for a return journey. You know, just you're paying for a guy to sit in the boat. Surely it doesn't cost that much for it just an extra run across and back. Just something to consider. And the second one is, yes, the seatbelt machine. I've talked to a couple of people that have participated on it, and they thought, oh yeah, this is cool. And they actually got quite a shock
of the impact when it stopped at the bottom. And they said it's the best thing they could have done to enjoy the experience, I think it was. And one person said, I thought I'd lost my false teeth. But anyway, it's very good, and I really recommend that we continue on as much as we can.
Thank you, Councillor Dowler. Councillor Kinnan-Month.
Through you, the Chair, thank you. Spooners Tunnel, you're looking at increasing the monitoring of it. You obviously know a lot more than what I've read here, but the tunnel's been in operation for hundreds of years, maybe slight exaggeration. What are you hoping to find from this increased monitoring of the tunnel?
Through the Chair, the real trick with managing public access through that tunnel is managing risk. So the monitoring that we've been doing has identified that there is some movement from time to time. And we're relying on our expert advisors who are doing and analysing, the monitoring to help us navigate that risk or reduce the risk profile to something that's acceptable, for the public. And their advice is that they would be able to give us a better steer on the risk if there was a little bit more information. And so that's what we're planning to do. So, for example, collecting a new data set, so scanning the tunnel in 3D using millions of points, and doing that on a periodic basis will allow us to understand how the tunnel is actually moving, because at the moment we've got a few crack sensors, and those gauges are showing that certain cracks are opening up, but that's kind of a very limited amount of information. What we should be able to get is a better understanding of whether the movement is concerning or not. So, yeah, hope that answers the question.
It does, absolutely. Can I ask one more question? Dave Moss, motorcycle expert. Glowing report here. Can we get the guy back on a regular basis so that more people can come engaged and more cyclists are aware, or motorcyclists are aware of that they're basically a death trap on two wheels? Well, that's not right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, through the Chair. Yep, you've hit on a very good point, and in fact, he is a repeat visitor. Yep, so he's been back a number of times, and we plan to keep that going.
Thank you. Is that it, Councillor Kinnan-Month?
I've got one more, if that's
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Chair. Page 23, you've done a survey of parking, and I'm a bit confused about the overflow parking on bullet point 3, Mapua. So when you're talking about average occupancy of 2% on the overflow parking, was that on the parking on Tahi Street on Waterfront Park?
Yes, just to clarify, that was the Kite Park, or that grassed area of Kite Park. Yep.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kinnan-Month. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just want to go back to the Mapua Ferry, and it's not about increasing runs when we've got bikes sitting on Rabbit Island. Mine is more about the fact that you are looking at investigating future contract options. Do we know if those options come within the scope of what's budgeted, or are you going to come back to us saying you need more pūtea to make that a reality?
Through the Chair, yes. Yeah, exactly the question that we're trying to ask ourselves in working through the options. Yeah, so I probably can't say more due to the nature of the discussions, but we'll come back and provide the information when it's available. Yeah.
Thank you, Jamie. Just a comment from me and then a question. I was just thinking about the mowing and totally understand where you're at. I think my experience in dealing with a number of our community organisations, they are quite focused on mowing. So I think communication is really important. The more that we can communicate why we do things or not do things, the better. Makes it easier for us councillors. My question actually, and I apologise if I've asked this question before, but when I look at your first graph, which is your sealed pavement service requests, and we've got the graph there showing a few years of data. On the one hand, I look at that graph and I can clearly see that there's probably a downward trend line on that over the years that are shown in the graph. And then I'm trying to reconcile that against the narrative around the deterioration in our roads because of previous underinvestment. So I feel as though I've got two conflicting pieces of information, which I'm sure you'll be able to clarify for me, Jamie.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. And I guess what you've described describes the danger of just trying to look at a single data set and try and draw conclusions from that. So what you might recall, I've previously provided some other graphs that show the number of defects present on our network and the way that is increasing over time. What I take from service request summaries is, I guess there's types of defects, certain types of defects like potholes that cause a person to ring up and say this needs to be dealt with, and it might be a pothole that's been there for a long time, or it might just have appeared. And what we are reasonably good at still is patrolling our network with the crews that respond to potholes and basically putting a Band-Aid on and buying ourselves some time. But the other data set that I described with the increasing number of defects shows that once the Band-Aids deal with service requests, but they don't deal with the underlying issue, and the underlying issue is the one we need to solve, and that's what we're addressing through the long-term plan.
Okay, that's good. I can certainly understand that, because I guess in actually dealing with the underlying problem in a robust way, it comes to the cost efficiency of actually what we do as well. Okay, that's good. Thank you for that clarification. So I'm just going to check any more questions under transportation for Jamie. If not, thank you very much, Jamie. And so we shall move on to reserves and facilities. Welcome, Grant. So this will be from pages 29 through to 42, councillors, members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take the report as read, but I'll just highlight the table on last meeting. So I have Jane Park here as well today, who can answer any questions on that, should there be any, but otherwise happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Grant. We'll start with Councillor Walker, then Councillor Maru. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for adding that. My computer's having a little meltdown at the speak. Hang on. My one question was, it's great to have that information. Can I also be told whether we are at full capacity? Like, are all our community houses full currently, or do we still have some getting renos done on them?
We do have some that are being renovated at the moment. To give you an accurate picture, I'll ask Jane to come up here and just highlight that.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jane.
Thank you, through the chair. Currently we have one property that is being renovated. The tenant vacated last week and she'd been there for 19 years. So it needs significant work.
Just a further question. So we're doing it because she's vacated. Do we, with our repairs and maintenance, do we have to wait for our tenants to leave before we bring them up to a standard? Like, can I have a little idea of a program of what we're doing to keep our houses up to a level? I get that when you've got a tenant in there, it's actually quite challenging to do work around them and to accommodate their privacy. But I guess my question is, do we have a works program which keeps our housing stock up to standard?
Yes, we do. We do yearly washes of the houses externally. We do inspections, and anything that's picked up at that inspection is dealt with immediately. Obviously, the tenants ring in with issues as well, which are also dealt with immediately according to urgency, or whether it's a wish list or a necessity. We have, when a tenant has been in a property a good length of time and the carpets have been worn and become a trip hazard or anything like that, we have recarpeted with tenants in situ. It is a little bit more challenging because normally when you do that in your own home, you'd move your furniture. So we also have to get people in to do that because they're not often in a position to do that themselves. So yes, we do work with them in. This particular property has a very dated bathroom, and when they move out, that's when we would do the bigger works like accessible alterations. So getting rid of trip hazards and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Thanks, Jane. Councillor Maru and then Councillor Dowler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Right, my question is, I think it's 5.7, and it's just clarity around the Motueka Library landscaping. Some different conversations where we couldn't have a bike shelter because it wasn't part of the consent, and we could have one that was won on a prize. What exactly are we getting in terms of bike stands around the Motueka Library that's in here? Because I'm confused.
I might need to defer to Russell on this one. I believe the projects team are handling that.
I'm going to hold that until projects come.
We can probably, if you're able to answer now, Russell, may as well.
From what I understand, there's still some dialogue going around to where to put it, but we do need to consent to put it in place.
So just through the chair, so at this stage we have a bike stand that we've won. We were going to put another bike stand somewhere, but we have no consent to put them anywhere around the Motueka Library yet.
That's my understanding.
Thank you, Councillor Maru. Councillor Dowler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number 5.30. Community garden water supply. Please tell me why a perfectly good water supply from the commercial owner next door, pumped water there for years, has all of a sudden become a problem.
I think I will defer to Richard Hilton on this one. He's been dealing with that one directly, so Richard is here.
Through the chair. So the actual new owner of the adjacent property didn't want to supply the water over time, so that's what I was told. The water supply is from a bore, and they had worries about contamination and then water use and how much water would be used. So
it's obviously used to me because it's opposite.
So through the chair, that came from one of their contractors, the plumber who was actually doing the work. The community gardens have a new water supply. It's all in place, and so they're not short of water at the moment.
Just to ask the question, please talk to the local councillors now in the future before you start spending money that I don't think we need to spend.
Okay. Yeah. So I think the budget for that came from some of the income that we receive on that site. We didn't really have a choice. The gardens were all set up with the water supply. There is some rules and regulations around supplying water across boundaries. I don't think it applied in this case because it was from a bore, but we really had no choice to replace that water supply.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Mayling, then Councillor Butler.
Right, well, it's page 34. Thank you, Madam Chair. Grant, just in relation to, I see baseball is planning for a diamond. I've been visiting the softball facility there regularly lately, and their numbers are way down. They had a tournament there over Easter, and there weren't that many teams. And I'm just concerned that particularly baseball and softball don't get on particularly well, and they're trying to grab the same player. So I don't want us to spend a whole lot of money on a fancy baseball diamond when in a couple of years we don't have the players. And in actual fact, the 4 softball diamonds aren't being utilised as they should. And there's a considerable amount of money gone into that over that period of time. And apart from seniors, you can run baseball or softball in the same diamond, but it's the seniors that are the difference. So, and I understand as well that the hockey numbers are down a little bit at the moment. So that's, again, you spend a lot of money on infrastructure for particular sports, and we've seen it in rugby league. They're here for 2 years and then suddenly they disappear. So particularly baseball and softball are competing for the same players, and we need to be very cautious in that area.
Just through the chair, I'm happy to raise that at the next section field committee on the 16th of April, I believe.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Mayling, and we obviously have elected members who sit on. Oh, maybe you're one of them.
Oh, I used to be.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Maru and Councillor Ellis. All right, thank you. We have Councillor Butler and then Councillor Kinninmonth and then still more after that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just a question for Grant. Look, I'm just wondering about the Hakawa playground request, which has been requested by that community out there for some time. And I'm wondering whether or not any scoping has been done on the possibility of using the piece of land just along from the store, which is sort of continuous with the Esplanade strip. Because if not, then the community would be wanting to look for another site. So just, yeah, is there an update on even looking at whether or not that place is suitable and whether or not it's wide enough? Thanks.
Although we've had conversations about it, I don't believe any scoping's been done on that particular site at this stage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Kinninmonth and then Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, as probably the community housing, probably something that Jane might be able to answer. First of all, I hear you're a human dynamo and I appreciate all the work you've been doing behind the scenes. You probably don't get the accolades that you're due. The wait list, 144 people at the end of March. Is that huge, or is that just, the wait list is growing and growing? And can you give me just a bit of a heads up with the wait list? Does it come and go, and what happens?
The wait list is significant. We would literally need to have everyone move out twice to house everyone on it. Typically, if someone is in adequate, given a little bit expensive current accommodation, they wouldn't see anything for at least 5 years. The people that come in that are in inadequate housing are caravans, camper vans, cars sometimes, obviously get escalated up the list. And that, you know, pushes those people that have got something a little bit too big or a little bit too expensive down a lot. And we have people that are unfortunately dying on the waiting list. I do check in with most of them annually to see where they're at. A lot of people end up in rest home care before they get accommodation. It is dire.
That's very sad. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Councillor Ellis, then Deputy Mayor Bryant.
That's rather sobering, isn't it? I've just got a couple of quick questions or comments. We continue to celebrate the new toilet out at the Equestrian Centre. I hear so many good things about a toilet you wouldn't believe. So thank you for that. I'm also really pleased to see that we've had the work undertaken on the eucalyptus trees at Waimea College. Are we confident that other trees around the area are being well maintained, our heritage trees? That issue created quite a traumatic event for some people in the community. So are we happy with the monitoring systems for the rest of the area? And also with the playgrounds that we're putting some new seating into, I'm just checking that we're looking at accessibility and the community seating guidelines to ensure a socialised seating arrangement.
Just briefly, in terms of the tree monitoring, yes, we are confident in what we're doing there. We have arborists, professional arborists, checking those on a program, protected trees, so yeah, we're satisfied that that's working well at this stage. In terms of the seating guidelines, staff do refer to that. Obviously, when we have seating that's donated, we have to be on the ball and make sure that it's not something that's already pre-manufactured, or and try and, I guess, balance that with the generosity that's out there at times. So, but yeah, Richard might be able to answer that more fully.
So yeah, generally seating is looked at for so that all people can use it. So usually armrests, full accessible, so the pavement that leads to the seat, etc. So we do have a number of seats that, of course, aren't available to all people, but any new installations we really should be looking very carefully at.
Thank you, Richard. Last but by no means least, Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one question from myself, just in relation to the Port Nisbush play equipment on page 38. Just in relation to the consultations completed, that's quite an achievement in itself. What's the timeline going forward from now? Are we looking at what's next, and when will we see the playground installed?
So my understanding is, and Councillor McKenzie can probably answer this more fully because she's been at a lot of the consultation briefings, is that we're now working to get stage one underway, and so the procurement of that play equipment and finalising the designs we're at that stage now. So the other stages will be in subsequent years and will require, I guess, funding to be established.
Thank you.
And the Flying Fox will be fixed in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
All right, so I'll just check if there are there any other questions for Grant and his team. If not, Grant, Jane and Richard, thanks for managing your revolving chair. You did that quite efficiently, so thank you. And we'll now move on to waters and waste with Mike. So this takes us pages 42 through to 55. Over to you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I may take the report as read as usual. I don't have anything to add at this stage. However, section 6.2 of the report talked about a report being attached. And unfortunately, after I'd approved the activity report, I got sick and then didn't get round to sending the report out. So apologies for the late report yesterday afternoon. But I do have Evan here today to present a summary of that compliance report. It is an important bit of work. It took up a lot of staff time over January, February to put it together. And as I say, the compliance report requirements are quite significant now. And we do have a number of areas that we need to be focusing on over the next year, and more particularly over the next 3 years or so, to bring everything up to the required standard. And we'll be shortly following with a similar amount of reporting for wastewater and stormwater as well. So there's a fair bit in this area coming down the track, which will be covered by Evan's team as well. So if there's any other questions, I can take them on the rest of my report now, and then I'll hand over to Evan after that, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. So welcome, Evan. Yes, all right, we'll kick off with Councillor Dowler. Thank you.
Yeah, refer to section 6/18, the distributed temperature sensing report. I took the opportunity when I heard about it one day to go and ask a staff member, what's it all about? So I went and had a look, saw and I got an idea of how it worked. A fibre optic cable put down and the temperature sensors all the way through, so it would sense cold water coming in on a certain day when the rest of the temperature was up, if it was wastewater. I thought, well, this is cool, and then found out how long the stuff went through. And you see the report there under 6/18, we found 60 problems within that area where that was being tested. Now that's huge, the amount of stormwater that we get into the system. So I commend you guys for using that technology and getting on with it. And yeah, it's one way of hopefully sorting a lot of the stuff out. So well done. Thank you.
Good. I wondered about that paragraph myself. I understand it a bit more now. Thank you. Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mike, can you just talk me through the improvements at Mariri? So I'll give you my experience. That's I drive up to the weighbridge, I get weighed, I go and get rid of my general, I go back and get weighed, I get rid of my green waste, go and get weighed and pay again, then I might drop some recycling off. I don't see how that little roundabout there is, one, going to mitigate people driving off, and two, that's already what I do. So there might not be lines marked, but I turn right there and I turn right there, then I turn left there. So two questions. Is that little bits of road marking going to improve drive-offs? And the second question is, what happens to people that do drive off? Do they follow up? This is good information for me because my rubbish is getting quite dear.
Yeah. Look, eventually what we'll have there is two weigh bridges eventually. So that's the plan in the future. But we've got issues at the moment that need to deal with. So the guys are tweaking the system where they can. If they didn't believe it would help, they wouldn't be doing it. They obviously think that this would manage it. And we do have CCTV on site. So we will be keeping an eye on the vehicles coming in and out. And provided they haven't got dodgy number plates, we should be able to follow up on it.
Because I need to take this opportunity. The people that operate that, I know they're contractors, are probably some of the most patient people I've ever, because people that have multiple different dumping bits have to go past that weighbridge multiple times, and they do handle that very well. So I just hope the people that are contracting on the ground are involved in this design, and we haven't just got. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. Councillor Kinnermont.
Through you, Madam Chair. Page 47, clauses 6.8, 6.11. I'm confused. I saw it said here that this is the fire hydrant being used at Motueka Rec Centre. The hydrant site is no longer available now that the new link filling station is operational. That's 5.8. 5.11 says that the evidence, anecdotal evidence that the hydrant's still been accessed and further action is to be installing security cameras. So is this a different hydrant? Or is it the same hydrant, or am I misreading some of these clauses here?
Through you, Madam Chair. So we used to have 2 hydrants on the site and the contractors had to have a hydrant upstand and a permit to use it. And with the new water legislation, any town with a population over 500, you may not use fire hydrants to take water at all under any circumstances, unless it's for operational purposes like flushing our pipes, only for public pipe services or reasons, or for the fire service only. And the fire service themselves, and we've had a couple of issues with this recently, can only use it for a fire or for training, not to fill swimming pools, etc. And so they've really clamped down on that, and it is an offence, and Taumata Arawai will certainly take it further if they find out we're doing that and mark us down. So what's happened, what we've done at the rec centre, we have installed 2 new swipe card systems to take water with the full setup with a meter, a backflow prevention, a swipe card device, and they come up there, they've got to sign up and they take their water and they get charged accordingly. And we've had to do a similar system down at Bachane Road, adjacent to the water treatment plant, Richmond Water Treatment Plant, and they were working very well. However, I believe some people are getting impatient, and they are, because we still have to have those upstands available for the likes of Tapawera, Murchison, Collingwood, where they can still take water via the old system, because we haven't got these swipe card systems in place. And some people are getting impatient and just using those upstands. And the other day, the one that we're talking about, I believe it was a trailer system, so a tanker on a truck and then the trailer behind, and they were using the swipe card for the front tanker, and they used their upstand for the back tanker, so they didn't have to wait so long. So yeah, highly illegal under the new system. It is a high risk, and we do face penalties if we're caught allowing that sort of operation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Butler.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question about the couple of questions actually. One about the Collingwood wastewater treatment plant, and I understand that that somehow the switches were turned off at some point, and so my question is actually about the camera at the Collingwood wastewater treatment plant, and whether or not we do have a continuous, we can get a continuous film of what's happening there with the camera that's there.
You, Madam Chair, I can probably speak to that, Councillor. The camera that you're referring to is actually at the is not at the wastewater treatment plant, and it is owned and operated by the contractor who looks after the recycling station there. So it's not our device, and the software failure that occurred within that camera that meant we couldn't get the continuous stream was not something we have any control over. We discussed this at Audit and Risk, and one of the things I've taken back to the team is how we might improve the network of cameras that we've got and bring those into information services remit so that we've got more control over the currency of software updates and the operation of those cameras. But we haven't had the conversation more broadly than IS at this stage.
Okay, thanks very much. It's just reassuring to know that it's still on the agenda, so hasn't fallen off. And so my other question is about the work at the Tākaka wastewater treatment plant, and whether or not the work that is in the list of projects is expected to lengthen the life at all of the Tākaka wastewater project, wastewater site, because we've got it's in the long-term plan at the very end of the long-term plan of 10 years, but extending the life of the site would be, the most desirable thing.
Through you, Madam Chair. At this stage, the works on that plant is to ensure the plant meets its compliance requirements through to the end of its resource consent, which expires in 2038.
I could also add to that, we've got a project to look at all the infiltration beds at the moment to ensure that it's working as it's supposed to. Because there has been some challenges with algae growth and some of the beds not absorbing the discharge water as quickly as we'd like. So we're doing some investigations at the moment to ensure that the various beds are sequenced correctly and can deal with the flow.
Okay, thanks very much. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, through Madam Chair. I'm looking at item 6.35, which talks about the progressing of the installation of a second weighbridge at Richmond, which is fantastic. But what I note is that you repurpose money that was originally allocated to Mariri. And I'm just wondering, does Mariri make it back on the work plan to have money allocated back that was taken from the original proposed work? Thanks.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, the intention is to eventually upgrade Mariri, but at the moment the priority is Richmond.
So where does Mariri sit on your reprioritisation list? Thanks.
I couldn't tell you offhand, but it is not too far in the distant future. Yeah.
So maybe offline you could send me what not too far looks like in an email chain. Thanks.
Thank you. May as well just send that round all members. Thank you, Councillor Walker.
Question you want to speak? All right.
Question from myself. So on page 54, we've got a paragraph there where we're collaborating with Natural Resource and Climate Change Policy staff on an investigation of biochar production and use in the region. I just want to check. So is this an inventory, or are we doing more in-depth research into biochar, or what is it that we're actually doing there?
I don't believe we're actually doing that work ourselves. I think it's keeping in touch with what's going on and the groups that are looking at those sort of options. I'll have to double check, but I'm not aware of any funding as such to do that research.
Okay, I guess the question I had in my mind when I was reading that is that within our district, there is a lot of expertise actually in biochar production. So if we were doing anything at all, we would be wanting to link in with those experts in the field.
So
yep.
Jefferson's.
Well, I'm not naming any names, but I'm just indicating there is a degree of expertise out there. Thank you. Councillor Kinmonth.
Yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Page 47 for 6.5. Final stages of commissioning the Mapua water treatment plant. How has that commissioning been going? One. And two, you're trialling the caustic dosing. Can you give me a bit of a heads up of what caustic dosing means?
So caustic dosing is for the pH control of the water. Our water from the bores tends to be slightly acidic. So it's to raise that. And yeah, this has been a bit of an ongoing issue with the controls at that site. They've been very difficult to align for some reason, and it's taken a lot longer to get it operational. I don't know, Russell, have you got anything to add at this stage on that? I think we're very close to having it commissioned now.
It's just the final fine-tuning of the electronic control systems that does electronic and automated stuff. Wasn't quite synchronized enough, and now we're just fine-tuning it so it does work as designed.
So lastly from me, so it's on time?
It's all working. It's just like your getting a watch fine-tuned to give exactly the right time at the right time.
On budget?
Yes, actually under.
That's brilliant to hear. I'd like to hear that. Thank you.
There's a few $100,000 under budget. On time, under budget, and working. Just the electronics need a bit of fine-tuning, which is not uncommon for these plants, which are quite complex in their telemetrics and how we operate them.
So is one thing I thought of then, is the Mapua water treatment plant, is it the most appropriate name? Because the water doesn't only go to Mapua, it goes around.
Mainly goes to Mapua, maybe in Richmond, but it's actually for Mapua.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. It's been called the Waimea, the Mapua, the Ruby Bay, the you name it. So no, we've just settled on the Mapua treatment plant because that's the dominant population that is serviced by it.
As the water's going to Mapua, even though it's based in Richmond.
Thank you very much for that heads up.
Good, thank you. Councillor Dowler.
Finally from me, to be the last one, 6/42. The request for proposal, the tenders for the management of the resource recovery centres. About 7 or 8 years ago, I sat at this table and I made a request for the Mariri station hours to be either increased at the end of the day or increased earlier in the day. Because a lot of contractors finish on their site at 5 o'clock at night. And if it's a builder, they'll bring a trailer load of rubbish back to town with them if they're working remotely. And the recovery centre's closed. Quite often in the morning, they've got to be back out at site with their workers at 8 o'clock. And if they've got a trailer load of rubbish, they can't go into the local building centre and pick up their gear for that day's work. I had an instance when I run the testing station, a guy pulled up one night with his Tandemax trailer. He was furious. And he had to go at me because I was the councillor. But the bloody recovery centre was closed and I couldn't get rid of my rubbish. I've got to go and pick up a whole heap of timber for my staff in the morning to get work. What am I going to do with my rubbish? I need the trailer. And I said, well, we better do something about that. So we went and actually laid a tarpaulin in my backyard and we scraped all the rubbish off onto that tarpaulin. He went away the next morning. He picked up his timber. He went away and delivered it to site. Then he came all the way back into town. We reloaded all the rubbish onto his trailer and he took it to the recycling centre and got rid of it. He was working 27 Ks out of the town. So it was a 54K round trip to get rid of his rubbish to come back especially. So it's the modern day today. It's a modern world. It's a new world. Can we get the recovery centre hours extended either in the morning or later at night so that these tradies can actually deal with their rubbish on an as-need-be basis? You can split the team. I don't know how you do it, but it's got to be simple. A lot of other places do it. So, you know, it was a fact of the matter what happened. I went out there the other day myself, got there at 31 minutes past 4 and it shut at 4:30. I thought, bugger me, they're back to office hours. What do we do?
Through you, Madam Chair. I recall this was an issue a few years ago and we did a lot of investigation into it. David looked at a range of options in that and we ended up back where we are now. I'll have a chat to David Stevenson and ask him to pull out that work again and why we ended up with the current hours, because I know there was a lot of work into it. I sort of recall that there wasn't actually a lot of support for it at the end of the day. It might have been 1 or 2. And it just didn't justify the cost of opening it up for extended hours. But I'll pull out the data and we can look into it again.
Thank you very much. So we'll get that a subsequent agenda item. Thank you, Councillor Dowler. And so I think that we might be at the end of questions, Mike. So, so Evan, you're going to take us through the Taumata Arawai information.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Evan McKenzie. I'm in Mike's team as team leader for water quality and safety. So my main role is trying to do the best we can to report to the regulator and ensure that we're providing safe water where possible. So yeah, Kelsey, can we have that table back up, please? Anyway, so yeah, Mike and I thought it would be important to highlight to the committee the risks or the main areas of risk that council faces in terms of ultimately public health, but also compliance with the rules and regulations surrounding provision of safe drinking water.
We are getting there. Just a reminder to councillors, so this information was supplied. You have got this on your computer system. Yep.
It's in your BitCan.
Yep. Yep. So this table up on screens is what the regulator Taumata ROI have kind of summarised the state of Tasman District Council supplies. It's not compliance as such. It's where they've identified where we are missing major barriers to specifically microbiological contamination, which is the main risk. This is kind of useful. It's not a particular surprise, but it sort of helps highlight, what remains, the main things that remain to be done for our water provision. So on that table, that lists our 15 main suppliers. It doesn't include Hamama, which is sort of in a grey area in terms of who owns and operates that, but so we'll not worry about that at the moment. The X means we do not have the barrier in place. So if we start with our favourite supply, Dovedale, we don't have a protozoa barrier. We do have chlorine, therefore we can potentially inactivate bacteria, and that chlorine then goes through the network and is a residual disinfection to any bacteria that might get in after treatment. A protozoa can really only be removed by ultraviolet light or filtration or various other methods that we don't currently use in the district. So Dovedale has only chlorine, nothing that can be guaranteed to get rid of protozoa. And of course, Dovedale's been on a permanent boil water notice since 1989 and is a bit of a focus for the regulator. They've been and visited, had a look around, they've reviewed our water safety plan around that and have identified that as one of pretty much our top risk supply. Could go on a long time about the issues with Dovedale, the security of the supply, the turbidity of the water, the vastness of the reticulation that needs to be supplied, and the largely rural nature that it is. But that is the focus of the regulator. 88 Valley, kind of similar, has chlorine. The source water is far better, but we still don't have a barrier to protozoa. Then we come through to Motueka as a bit of a surprise, because we've got a brand new water treatment plant there, which has got UV filtration and chlorine. The reason it comes up with 3 crosses there is because the rec centre, the old rec centre bores, which used to be the main supply for Motueka, still has to come in or be used from time to time when there is pressure drops within the reticulation, which can be caused, such as the incident with the water tankers filling up. If there's too much filling going on at once, that can reduce pressure in the zone, and the rec centre has to kick in to help bolster that and sort of supplement Parker Street. So every time that happens, in theory, we're producing non-compliant water, which isn't being disinfected. So Taumata ROI have basically highlighted that as meaning that Motueka as a whole, in theory, doesn't have a barrier. We're working on a solution to that, which is to get a reasonable or quite a big reservoir in there, which in theory will reduce that need to use the rec centre bores, and will be all compliant with that. Retain the rec centre bores as emergency only, basically have them disconnected, and therefore that'll make Motueka fully compliant with all the barriers in place. Redwoods Valley 1 and 2, again, rural supply, chlorine, but no UV or filtration. There is a project nearing commencement, if it hasn't already, around consolidating those supplies and getting a proper water treatment plant in place with all the required barriers. And then Upper Takaka, we don't have chlorine. We do have UV infiltration, but we don't have chlorine. Therefore, the drinking water rules, so we don't have to have chlorine, but the Water Services Act, which sort of trumps the rules, says that we do, and that's a bit of a point of contention. Te Mararoa haven't come to us and said we must put chlorine in there, but that may be a matter of time. Hard to say. But Apataki are reasonably well down the priority list for getting that extra barrier in. So last year, October, November last year, council was directed by the regulator to come up with a confirmed and funded plan to get these, excluding Apataki, to get the other barriers in place. So by the end of June, we have to give them a plan which they will then approve or not. And they've told us that for Dovedale and 88 Valley, being surface water supplies, we must have the protozoa barrier in place by the end of 2024, and that with all the will in the world, even all the money in the world, that will not happen. Motueka, we do have a plan around the extra storage, so that shouldn't be a problem, and that we were directed to have that sorted by the end of next year. I think that should be achievable. Redwood Valley, also groundwater, we're directed to have a protozoa barrier by the end of next year. That may or may not be achievable. I suspect not, but at least there is a bit of a plan in place. So we have to come up with, by the end of June, with a confirmed and funded plan. The other sort of compliance option is what's known as an enforceable undertaking, and that's basically we commit to a plan which won't necessarily meet their deadlines. We say to them, this is what we plan to do. We're committed to these timeframes. We submit it to them and they sign it off or don't. And there'll be some negotiation around that. So that we have to have this, we will be negotiating with them around that and discussing further about whether we can commit to a confirmed and funded plan or go down the enforceable undertaking route. And if we get an approved enforceable undertaking, we then are committed to meeting that. So that's kind of it. I mean, I could go on quite a lot more. That's sort of it in a nutshell. In terms of compliance, as Mike alluded to, spent a lot of time. The reporting requirement is pretty massive now. So we have to report monthly against various of the rules, and then annually against every single rule. And there's sort of 80 or 90 rules, not all applying to each supply, but it's a pretty big task. And with the exception of those supplies there, we're not doing too bad. Been a lot of upgrading and achievement in terms of supplying water, e.g. the Mapua treatment plant, that's relatively new, and Wakefield Brightwater, other examples of that. But the main area where we're kind of not meeting the rules is in data quality. And that, unfortunately, sometimes the lack of data, or there could be a power outage, it could be a communications outage. As soon as that happens over a certain threshold of time, which is pretty low, it means that has a knock-on effect to a bunch of rules which we cannot be compliant with for the year. So one of them is we have to have minute-by-minute data points to demonstrate that we've got, UV is working properly and turbidity, etc. So they're quite tough, and we're working on improving that. But in places like Golden Bay, there is sort of bottlenecks, basically, in terms of getting data from there to here, so that we can then demonstrate that we're collecting all the data we need to. So we're working on that, but in some cases it's going to be quite difficult and, if not expensive, to try and meet the very stringent requirements of these rules. That's pretty much it.
Great, thank you very much, Evan. It's good to get that overview. We do have some questions. I might just get you to pull your microphone in a little bit if you could. Thank you. So we'll start with Councillor Dowler, then Councillor Mayling.
Well, first of all, thanks for the report and thanks for the explanation. It's very good. I think it's explained a lot. When I owned my business in Huffam Street, I had a direct view of the water treatment area at the recreation centre. And I watched over a number of years all the improvements that were done and huge well pipes driven into the ground, etc., etc. I personally feel it's a damn shame that we're going to mothball the damn thing unless it's an emergency. So I know we're going to put storage in, that's the plan. I'd personally like to know an option, the difference in cost between doing the storage, because I know it's not going to be cheap, and supplying the required treatment of that site. Because let's say if something did happen up at Parker Street, we're buggered. If we did have the two sites still going, it would be an option, because we know that one site can supply the whole town as well. It's just my feeling that I just feel like the amount of money that we've poured into that site over the years, which is not tens of thousands of dollars, we're a lot more than that. So I don't know whether there's an option or whether you're worried about saltwater intrusion eventually or whatever, because it's so close to the sea. Don't need an answer now. I'm just putting it out there to you. And just my second question is, your Redwood Valley and 1 and 2, these supplies, these rural supplies are a lot of them for stock water and stuff. So if we start treating and putting chlorine and everything into it, a lot of it's just going to go onto the grass. So because of the situation that happened at Torrent Bay, I don't know anything about it. I only heard and read the media thing about it, that it's had an exemption, Is that something that we could possibly head down the track for these rural schemes or not? Because, I just can't see the point of treating water that's probably going to spend a lot of the time being poured on the grass to feed stock. It just concerns me of the waste, where we could do it in individual properties. But we might have another staff member to go around and sort it out once a year to make sure it's all good and kosher. But at the end of the day, what a waste of water.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll come back to that one. It's one of my favourite topics. The rec centre, yes, it is the most cost-effective option by a long way, because if we were to continue using those two bores, we would actually have to upgrade it to the same standard as the Parker Road facility, and that was several $1 million. Whereas we probably the pump station and the reservoir there is probably of the order of $1 million, if I remember correctly, Russell. Yeah, so it's orders of magnitude more expensive. Basically, it'd be a whole new, like Kaiteri or Parkers Road treatment plant. Yep, so it is the most cost-effective option. But I think it is a good thing that we've still got the bores there, that in an emergency or something, we've effectively got an underground reservoir that we can tap into with untreated water, but they can be boiled and used at some stage. Onto the Redwoods Valley stock water. Well, I think coming back to urban supply, you could say the same, because maybe, I don't know, a couple of % of the water that we treat and supply to an urban area is actually for drinking water. The vast majority of it doesn't need to be treated for drinking, but the risks are there, and so you've got to treat it. With Redwood Valley, so we're looking at Redwood Valley, Dovedale and 88 Valley and what's best for there. So Dovedale is very much a stock rural agricultural supply. And the options are limited for centralised treatment, and the risks are still there. So we're working towards a acceptable solution for there, possibly endpoint treatment. I don't believe and I would find it hard to support the same option for Redwood or 88 Valley, because they are very much lifestyle blocks, small blocks, large populations for the area that they're covering. So they are essentially almost an urban supply, and the risks that we've got to provide for take it to the next level. So very little chance of arguing that point. Amama, we could do that for similar sort of reasons. It's predominantly stock. It's 96% stock water used there. But yeah, we with these populations that are approaching 500 or more, we are stuck with the Water Services Act.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dowell. Councillor Mayling, then Councillor Kinninmont, then Councillor Shellcraft.
Well, this goes back to the Water Services Act. And Richard and I did a submission to the Select Committee, and they obviously didn't listen very well. They did like the video, but it was mainly the mayor swearing at his dog, I think. But yeah, there must be other councils around the country that have got these rural schemes that are having a similar problem. Because I know we advocated for point of use filtration because it made sense. The concern I have is where you've got some people that have got very big units, so they're reasonably big farms, and I can think in the 88 Valley area and also on the Dovedale scheme, there's a couple of big farms in there that have a lot of units. We'll just get people walking away because of the costs, so it'll make the schemes even more untenable than they are now. So is the regulator sort of aware of this, and do they have much understanding? Because there must be, like other councils, I'm thinking of these ones in the middle of the North Island, Tararua and places like that, they must have a similar problem.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. I'm in reasonable close contact with the likes of Huranui, my equivalent down there, various other places, Waimakere, and yeah, very much the same issues. The regulator is aware. The team that looks after us is in Christchurch, and two of them were up here in December, I think it was, and physically walked the ground in Dovedale and saw the issues there. Whether they understand is a different issue, which I won't comment on. But yeah, we asked that. So there's the drinking water assurance rules, which mainly applies to the urban schemes and the bigger schemes, but there is another compliance option which is an acceptable solution, which Mike alluded to, and there is one for rural or mixed rural supplies. The problem with that, and that is all about endpoint treatment, so you put it on the house, away you go, is that requires that we as a council own and maintain and control that point of use device, and that's really the sticking point. And we are in not about negotiation, but we are raising that issue with Te Matarawai. We've got a meeting on the 16th, I think, to restart that discussion, and they had kind of made noises that was encouraging around, yes, we may be able to relook at this.
For Dovedale.
Yeah, for Dovedale. Possibly 88, if, maybe, but mainly around the Dovedale scenario.
Madam Chair, because I know a number of people on the Dovedale scheme already have those sort of filters that they're responsible for themselves, because we use that in part of the video to demonstrate that. So we've already got residents that are doing the right thing and they're responsible. And the filters aren't cheap. I think a scheme, they're about $4,000 roughly to do that. But it means that you've got safe drinking water at your home, which makes real sense to me, because these schemes are so long. I think you've got over 30 kilometres of pipe and 160 in Dovedale. So that gives you an idea of, that's where you can get your contamination, because it just goes so far. But having us responsible for it just creates a whole lot of bureaucracy, and the cheapest and simplest will be responsibility on each household. And to me, that just
don't disagree at all, and that's the point we're trying to make.
All right, thank you, Councillor Mayling. We will need to wrap this up soon, but we've got Councillor Kinninmont, Shellcraft, and then Alice.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, and I'll be very quick. At our last operations meeting, Mike, I asked you to comment on the report that said there was a lot of work undertaken in January and February to prepare reports for the regulator, and it was very significant. And I now hear it's massive, where I thought I was being told this was just a once-off setting the process up. So the regulator is demanding so much more data from us that it's costing staff time and the ratepayers a lot more money. Would that be a fair reflection of?
Yes, it is. Yeah. In my previous life, I was a drinking water assessor for the Public Health Service, and all we did was an annual review of compliance and reported on that, and that was pretty much it. But now we have to do a monthly, well, depending on the size of the supply, monthly, 3 monthly, 6 monthly, and then a big annual report on each and every rule that applies to each and every supply. And that literally has taken, for that annual report anyway, that's taken most of January and February for my 2 team members. That may calm down a wee bit next year.
If I could just comment as well. When we had our meeting, as I say, we've got a pretty good working relationship with our Tamatarawa counterparts, and they've been here twice now and done a walkover with us. And one of the feedback I gave them is that, could we look at an exception reporting rather than reporting on every single line item? Because the data is there. We've got huge databases of all this information. It's easy to strip through it and work out what's not compliant. And if we just report on our the exceptions where we haven't got a compliance and what we're doing about that only, that would significantly reduce the amount of reporting we need to do as well. So we'll see how much they've taken that on board.
Yep.
One very quick last question, please. You mentioned on one of the schemes up there was non-compliant and all the, can't remember the exact words you said, but all the best will in the world and all the money still wouldn't fix it in time. So therefore it's telling me that we already know we're not going to be compliant. What does other local authorities have in the way of relationship with the regulator? Like, is this a big brother telling little brother how to do? Or is this time when a little brother could say, look, we just can't meet your requirements. You're going to have to cut us some slack. Now, I know you have a good relationship with local people, but maybe through the local government might be another avenue where you get some sort of group comments.
Through you, Madam Chair. Evan has and his team have got very good networks around the district from previous role they've had, around the country rather, and they do keep in contact and often give joint feedback to Tamatarawa. But I think I do need to state, as a local authority, the feedback we're getting from consultants that are working across the country is that we're right up there with some of the top performers and we're struggling. So I think there is an issue out there, particularly with a lot of district councils and rural councils and that to comply. A lot of them don't have the equipment that we've got in place. We've put a lot of effort in the last 2 years rather. We've got a compliance team comprised of 4 people at the moment. 3 of those are just for water. Wastewater and stormwater is coming as well, so just a heads up. But we're doing pretty well, and from what I'm hearing about consultants that are working across the country.
Thank you. We'll move on. So we've got Councillor Shellcrest and then Councillor Ellis. We are going to be drastically eating into our lunch break, Councillor.
My one's a real quick one. That's just a technical question. The protozoa barrier, that's obviously something really expensive. What is that and how does it work?
Yeah, sure. So protozoa are microbiological, things like Cryptosporidium and Giardia are the 2 main ones. They're quite a large organism and are pretty much impervious to chlorine. So bacteria will be killed by chlorine, but not these protozoa. So you have to have like ultraviolet disinfection is what we mainly use in this district, and that literally inactivates the DNA of the bug as it passes through the UV reactor, basically being zapped by UV rays as it goes through. Or in the case of Pohara, there's a membrane filtration plant there which filters out particles to 0.01 microns, which therefore traps the protozoa and filters it out of the water stream.
All right, well, not sure what to say about that, but anyway, Councillor Ellis.
I'm sorry, just a very quick question. Maybe some reassurance. How often do we test for protozoas?
Almost never. it's very difficult to test for. You have to take a 20-litre sample, collected in a particular way, sent off to a laboratory, and about a week later you get a result. So the test for protozoa is actually monitoring that your disinfection is operating correctly, i.e. are we delivering enough UV dose to kill them? Is our turbidity low? Are the membranes filtering as they're supposed to? Rather than, you can test easily for E. coli, a bacteria, but not for protozoa. And the rules don't require testing for protozoa.
Can I just add, there's probably in some water supplies, there may not even be any protozoa in there, but we have to do it just in case there is.
So I'm thinking, putting in a pun with a sledgehammer. Do we, so we can't test for it to be sure that our current things. So I assume that these are notifiable issues to the health department should people be diagnosed with issues, and do we have any figures regarding that?
Yeah, so what happens if the health department find a case of, say, Cryptosporidium, or an outbreak that they've got a reasonable idea that it might be linked back to water, they will contact us and we'll talk about which supplier those people on. Say if it was Dovedale, if you got 50 people, then okay, we've got no barrier. Yeah, feasibly it could be. However, if it was, say, in Kaiteriteri, and you got an outbreak like that, we would go back and check if all our UV dose information was correct. I mean, we keep tabs on that daily anyway. So we would investigate on that aspect.
All right. Yes, Councillor Ross.
So have we had any notifications in any sort of reasonable time span of, I don't know, the last 5 years?
No.
All right, thank you. Look, I think that obviously a regulator is a regulator, and they're always going to tell you that you need to comply with the law because that's actually what they're set up to do. And we're talking about, other councils up and down the country, but we've got to remember as well, this is not just a council issue, this is a government issue, and there are many government agencies with supplies up and down the country which are basically non-compliant and possibly might be for years to come into the future. So we do need to keep that in mind in terms of where we're at, and if we do have issues of non-compliance, then we've really got to be asking ourselves, what is the actual health and safety risk to people or to the environment, rather than are we complying? Because as a country, the country won't be compliant for years. And even an enforceable undertaking, would we want to instigate an enforceable undertaking? Because if we go down that path, then that actually becomes legally enforceable, takes away councillors' role to even be able to prioritise, doesn't it? So that would require careful consideration, I think, to go down that path. Anyway, thank you very much, Evan. It's great to see the work that you're doing and to know that in terms of local government, we're up there near the top, and that's much appreciated. So thank you, Mike and Evan. That takes us to our program delivery update. So Russell, thank you. This is pages 55 through to 62.
Thank you. Pat report is read, but also refer to the attachment. Attachment is quite an important part of the report. It's in 2 places at the moment. The reason for that is that we can give you more information on the projects and bring them more to life. So in the general report, you'll see a bit more pictorial descriptions of what we're doing. And in the attachment, you'll find more of a table form, which allows you to just gaze through and see how we're doing in terms of time and budgets for our overall projects and a description of them. But we feel there's a lot of benefit in highlighting some of the key projects we're doing to be more informative for both yourselves and the public at large. And just a quick bit of focus on the Kaiteri Boardwalk and Shared Path. We've had a lot of response from the public about how much it has improved safety, as well as how good it looks, but particularly in terms of safety. It's a busy area during the peak summer, has been dangerous in the past, and had a lot of positive feedback on that particular project. Happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Russell, I do note you've got a more sophisticated project report there in the table. I think
and it's also evolving with a little bit of work to do here and there.
Yeah, no, congratulations on that. I was well received by myself. Councillor Maru, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's a quick question, Russell. So the moving of Better Off funding from 1348 to 200k towards the Whakaira Street Wanoa roundabout, where's it moving from?
One part of Motorway to the other through our funder.
Okay.
It's about prioritisation. We're working with the community boards and others to find out the priorities of what they want.
Yes.
We had some funding taken away from us.
Yes.
And therefore, we're going to do two things. We only do one of them. So we've decided which one we want to do.
What aren't we doing? Do we know that yet?
Well, we lost $8 million. There's quite a few things we're not doing.
Oh, so still the conversations we've been having for the workaround path, Whakaira Street, it's still okay. It's not getting removed. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Chair, just a couple of three questions, if I may, for you. Firstly, Russell, at 1325 on page 71, just in relation to Streets for People, and it talked about cycleway trail. Just wondered who may not be the project delivery, who actually reviews these trail cycleways, particularly after the comments we heard in public forum this morning, and when does that happen and what's the process? Might be a question for Jamie.
It is we get a brief to do something, and some of these projects are what they call trial projects, so subject to a period of time in use. There's reviews done, and I need to default to Jamie for a mechanism to change.
So the Chair, I believe a progress report is going to the full council meeting on the 2nd of May. So there's a whole lot of monitoring and evaluation and analysis of the feedback that will all be contained in that report for some of the sites. So that's for Aranui Road, Queen Street and Champion Road.
Queen Street?
Queen Street, yes.
Did you say that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Thank you. And then just moving on to wetland restoration on page 73. It's the Better Off funding, I think. Just how is that project going and when is that going to come to an end? I'm aware that's been some recent activity at Lake Rotoriti and seems to be ongoing.
Which one are we talking about? The
wetland restoration. Hang on, I'll see if I can find some more detail. They're looking at me a little blankly. Haven't got my glasses either.
What page are you on? What page are you on?
73 and it's 1222.
No, it's under the government stimulus funding. So it was a Jobs for Nature project, I think.
Yeah. Projects are to be completed by June. Wetland restoration and fish passages completed June 26th. So I understand, and talking to other staff, there's a work going on at Lake Valleys.
I just wonder, Deputy Mayor Bryant, if that's something that, Russell, you could look into that.
Yeah.
And I think that particularly with that wetland restoration project down at St Arnaud,
Black Valley Stream,
that Deputy Mayor Bryant needs an update on that project in particular.
That's partially done by, not so much through my team, but through other parts of council.
Yeah, that's the issue in some ways, because it seems
it's not actually one of our, it's activated by our environmental team. Yeah. Happy to brief you later.
Thank you. And then finally, just the Murchison pump track, good work there. Thanks to yourself, Rhiannon and Adam, for the work they've done, and looking forward to the opening on the 20th of April.
Yeah, the community is quite excited about it. They're very keen. They're using it, and we look forward to being officially open. It was a nice combination of the community getting involved with volunteering, to help in terms of materials and machinery. So it was a combined effort and a good outcome.
You know, so your work's appreciated, and yeah, hopefully all goes well. You know, they've had a bit of a job to keep the younger people off it until that's completed, but they'll get their moment in the sun.
Good, thank you very much. Oh, is Councillor Shellcrest going to be on his bike for that, or?
Yeah, he has to ride his bike.
Excellent. Just a question from me, if I could, Russell. So the tanker filling stations project, I see it's in amber because Wakefield's on hold due to funding. So how and when are we going to get that funding for Wakefield?
I was going to ask my colleague here, but he's not here. We do projects when we have the funding to do them. At the moment, we don't have the funding to carry it out, so I can't actually answer that.
All right, is that something you could undertake to maybe?
He needs to find out, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Mike, question for what, how he gives the budget out to us as a project team.
Got you. Apologies for that, but if you could touch base with them. Thank you, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Good to see a report with so many green lights in it. I just wanted to clarify something. As part of project management, do you also handle the public consultation?
Yes, sometimes, depending on what the project is. So, when I say sometimes Jamie might be doing it, sometimes our team might be doing it. We're doing public consultation at Mapua, for instance. We're doing the project management of the master plan. We've done a huge amount of consultation with the Streets of People Transport Choices. But it's normally a team sport, and Jamie's team is involved because in the end it's their assets. But often the project managers front foot public meetings and do stuff. So part of our project brief is to do undertaking the consultations and the feedback.
Thank you. So can we take on board? I note today in public forum, I don't know if you were here for that. Somebody was talking about letterbox drops, and I'm well aware that we've spent quite a lot of time consulting with the public regarding the Streets for People projects. But can we take on board, it is tricky when we put out notifications via Facebook and Newsline. People don't always compute that events might be happening in their neighbourhood because they obviously did not weren't in the room when we were consulting on that over several weeks on those projects. Can we take on board perhaps doing mailbox drops?
We do.
Earlier on in the process, perhaps? I'm not sure. It's a tricky situation because I understand how hard
we endeavour to. We do
are.
Multiple channels in terms of Facebook, radios, drop-in sessions at the mall. We endeavour to do as early as possible. If you do too early, they forget about it because it's not going to engage them. And you can't do it too late because they say, why didn't you tell me earlier? And people get their communications through multiple channels, and some people have nothing to do with technology. So the old-fashioned way of a letter drop helps them. Others see a council piece of paper and put it in the bin without even reading it. We know that. So it has to be multiple faceted. And there's no easy answer other than you've got to try many times, often, to get the message across. If anyone can help, please let me know.
Thank you, Russell. Tricky. I'm one sitting here wondering about mailbox. What happens when people have no junk mail on their letterbox?
And one of the reasons we use mailboxes, often we have people who are tenants, so you can't send it to the owner necessarily. You don't necessarily know who's occupying the premise.
All right, thank you. All right, Russell, well, thank you very much. We shall move on now to Nick. So thank you for being so patient. And this so we're back to page 62, councillors.
Through you, Madam Chair. Chanel. I take the report as read, just three addenda, really. We've been in response to your query, Councillor Walker, about program maintenance of community housing. There has been condition reports carried out with forward planning, and we're probably about halfway through those at the moment. So we will have a 10-year budget for all of these properties, which is phased. Old Motueka Library, 8.7. We've pushed back the report that was due this month for a month to next month, mainly because we had a workshop a few weeks ago and some further options came to light, which we need to do a bit of work on. And finally, the Old Wakefield Library come out really good. There'll be an invitation coming out in the next couple of weeks for an inspection. We're just waiting for some final, for the last 5% really is just spraying the borer, doing some carpet repair, and I think we're going to end up replacing an old kitchen bench. And that's it. No error.
Thank you, Nick. Councillor Walker. Thank you. I really appreciate that feedback through Chair regarding the maintenance program coming for our housing. So thank you for taking that into your report. I guess my question is that, yes, you've just stated that the time frame is going to be extended yet again. And I emphasise that yet again about the future of the Old Parr Street Library. I guess my concern is, how do we put that out on comms? Because way back when Susan Edwards was here, she took a register of interest of people who were keen and wanting to be engaged with what happens with the future of that site. And, you know, we were going to have that summarised well before the new library opened, and, you know, quite a bit of time has spanned since then. So my question is, how are we going to communicate with our community, particularly when you've got a couple of groups of high interest that have been hanging out, waiting, the museum being but one, for our response to what we're doing? And I get that you've had a workshop, but us councillors had a workshop with you last year. This is a separate workshop. I just wonder, at what point do we get to making this decision?
It's true, Madam Chair. I guess communication to interested parties will have to await until we have a preferred option for the Old Motueka Library, which may potentially affect also the service centre.
How do we take the community on this hikoi of an extension of time is my question. I get we can't give them an answer, but staying in touch and communicating, I think, is a key factor for our community.
Perhaps I could answer that one. One of the challenges we have is expectations from the community that these buildings have been vacated, so therefore they can move straight in. We know.
Well, they haven't moved in.
Well, not the old library, they haven't. And the reason why is because it's not structurally sound. So people think that because they've been vacated, they can be moved into, and that's not the case at all. The Laura Ingram building needs to be upgraded, needs to be work done on it. And as you know, there's a whole lot of discussion around the service centre and whether it should be relocated, and that's what the discussions have been about. The reason why the delay has occurred is that one of the options you looked at was selling the service centre. We have got to go through a process of finding out whether we have to offer it back to the person that was purchased, the Motueka Borough purchased op urgent previously. And that has created a couple of hurdles that we have to follow through. And I think those were presented to the community board members and councillors at the workshop a couple of weeks ago. And then you raised another one that we're having to investigate. So that's why we're having to do further investigation to cover all the options so that they're all on the table. And then the community board can decide which one they want to choose of those options and recommend to council. But what we communicate to the community is that it's not just a simple moving in. There's a whole lot of scenarios in place and buildings to be upgraded before any community can be leased to any community.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Maru.
It'll be very quick. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm assuming now it'll go to community board in May, council in June. So there'll be absolutely no budget in the long-term plan for service centre or library. So whatever happens has to be cost neutral. Am I assuming right? Because I can't see how it'll get in the annual plan if paper's not coming to council till June.
Some of the options will be cost neutral, others may not be, but we're working through the detail of that at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you for providing us with the photos of the Old Wakefield Public Library building. It looks fantastic when you drive up Edward Street, got to say. job well done. And I'm not seeing any other hands up, Nick. So thank you very much for your report. We do have a resolution up on the board, and that is to receive the community infrastructure activity report, moved by Councillor Mayling, seconded by Councillor Kinninmonth. I'll put that resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, that is carried. And thank you very much. I understand. So, Chris, I think you're presenting the report, but I guess before you do, we've all received an email this morning, and we should acknowledge Steve, your new appointment as Chief Operations Officer. So congratulations on that appointment. Whoever said IT professionals, you know, are pigeonholed. So congratulations and well done.
Geez, one big pigeon. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And just before Chris speaks to his report, so my apologies, I have got to sign some documents at 12:30, and I know that the infrastructure activity report was so engrossing that it's kind of left me a little bit short. So if I do get up and leave the table, it's with my apologies. I have to be somewhere else at 12:30.
Kia ora koutou. So there are a few updates to the report, as you can imagine. A few weeks have passed by. So the first item is under 3.2, our upgrade for Magic. That is progressing as planned. We have an issue that's arisen in the last week around how we migrate the lease information from the property module to a new lease module. So we're working through that one. We're not anticipating any big dramas with it, but it's just something that's popped up. So that will be something that might feature in our next report as to whether that has become something significant or not. Under 3.6, we had 6 work streams, we now have 5. So we did have a work stream called Community Channels and Workflows, and one called Core Council Applications. And when we started the journey of DIP, they were quite separate in what they were trying to achieve. Now we're going the route we are with our move to the Dynamics platform. So all paths lead to our new one system, our new ERP. So the decision has been made that the activities are all really about the one thing, about the transition of our ERP with our new systems. So we've got rid of one work stream basically, which means we reduce our governance overheads and our admin and so on. It makes things a bit more efficient. And let's go in here. But this is the first time we've reported on the other projects that we deliver in the IS team as well. So previously there's been a table here for our DIP projects and work streams. And there was another one in here, which is all the other project work which comes through to us. So that's, so just got someone trying to call me. So that should be helpful to you to see the breadth of work that's coming through the team. There's some 20 projects in there. These are the projects that are initiated largely by staff who say, I need a thing to do something. And if it's a larger than a 40-hour kind of effort, it becomes a project on this list. So you can see the amount of work we're going through. It's fairly new information, so I am building the status reports there. So bear with me if some of it's a bit gappy. But in terms of transparency, I think it's a step forward for you there. And I did also want to mention our new risk reporting. So we're starting to use Power BI to pull information out of our project register. We've got risk categories for our program, and this is showing some quite good information under 6.3. Page 11 on mine, and not be page 11 for you, but on item 6. What's that showing us is the spread of risks across our projects and work streams, and also the kinds of risks that are popping up. So rather than trying to report to you on, a lot of risks and individual risks, we can talk about categories, which I think is more meaningful for you. So as you would expect, we've got a lot of risks at our whole program level. And the next most common, the project that's got the most risks around it and issues around it is the Magic Merlin project, which is in flight. So again, you'd expect to see more things being reported in that project, but nothing which is scaring the horses. And I think that was the main comments there. And I've also put a section in this report in as a request from last meeting to look at benefits. So I've done a bit of a benefits 101, which I hope wasn't too patronising, but just to give you a flavour of how we manage that and some examples of some of the benefits that we've realised to date.
Great, thank you, Chris. We shall start with Councillor Kinninmonth.
Just a quick boast. Thank you very much for the report. It's so brilliant to see all of your program work, all of your work in there. So it's not just getting an isolated bit. So 10 out of 10 for that. And also like 6.3, your risk rating. That's identifying to me that you guys are on top of your workload, you're managing it, and you're managing the project. So a big pat on the back, big thank you from me. Keep it up.
Thank you, Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering whether I was going to ask a question, but I've obviously did. Just 6.6, Chris. So the recruitment of a change lead. I remember sitting here very, very early in long-term plan workshops, and that position, that title, didn't get a lot of support from around this table. And I see it's just in here, so it's probably happening. But I'm just trying to reflect back to those conversations, Madam Chair. There was quite a bit of hesitancy around that, and now I read it, so I don't know without.
If I may, through you, Madam Chair, yes, there wasn't a lot of support for that around the table at the time of the long-term plan, and it's not part of the permanent establishment for either information systems or the communication and change function. What we have identified through various conversations with other council organisations who have adopted technology change, and more broadly, is that it's actually not about the technology, it's about the people-centred change. And so we have identified that one of the biggest risks to the success of the program is to not have people in the change space. So the project is funding a resource in the same way that we pay a contractor and Chris is formed to manage the program. We're going to do the same with a change manager, and that's a 2-year contract for our organisation.
Thank you, that makes sense. That's within existing budgets. Because the other part is, it's really frustrating as a user trying to get information. I suspect it's equally frustrating on the system for staff. So surely there's a willingness to get a system that works across all different departments and platforms. There must be a high buy-in to going, this old clunky stuff isn't working.
Through you, Madam Chair, yeah, you might think that, but people can be fickle beasts when it comes to technology change, and the sorts of things that we're prepared to put up with rather than change is surprising, and hence the need to have a change role. Some of the issues that you have experienced are because of design issues with our information management systems, that had we had better buy-in at the start and been able to pull together a better understanding of our business, we would have done differently.
Thank you very much. You're happy with that, Councillor Maru?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move the report if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess linked to that, I mean, you know, in 6.3 in your report, you do talk about the only risk with high existing and high residual rating is the one about the capacity and capability of council staff. So, it can certainly be a barrier. So, I do support the effort put into change management. And I just wanted to congratulate you as well, I guess, on your approach of trying to get some structure and order around those improvements that are coming from the business, because you want to be able to respond to the business, but you also want to make sure that it's integrated and prioritised properly and give visibility to it, because otherwise you run that risk of that horrible thing called shadow IT developing. So I think that's really good to get that wrapped round. Anyway, there wasn't a question on that. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. In the time that I've sat here around the chambers, things in the IT world change on a regular basis. And I don't see that as a bad thing, albeit sometimes very frustrating. I won't look at Councillor Dowler as I say that, but what I'm wanting to know is only because he shared some info about his big tin can issues, which I currently have myself. Anyway, I wanted to know, when we do our reporting, I would find it really helpful if there was a way that we could report on our investment versus the budget and on how we're tracking. When I look at and I don't know if it was called a business case, but when we look at what we started to and the hiko and the journey to where we are now, sometimes I don't think we're on the same page as where we were. And I don't say that's a wrong or a negative thing, but I'd like to be able to track against when I look at things. So what have we invested in? What did we actually budget on that? Mindful of how much we're putting out there to our community for the long-term plan, and how you can present that in an easy version for me to look at and go, oh, okay, I understand where that's at. That's my first question. My second, do you want to respond or? No, I'm getting big grins and head nodding. Okay, my next thing is this Merlin that we're reporting on. So this is an automated system.
I'll respond to that question. So Merlin is the name for our Magic. It's the project which is upgrading Magic to a cloud version from a version that sits in a cupboard upstairs. So it's to buy us some time really until we know where we're going with our the next financial management information system. Our finance team needs some more time to work on some of the processes and systems that they want to improve before we move to a new system. So in the meantime, we need to upgrade the Magic software to the latest version, which is a cloud version. And that means that it's supported, it's got rid of all the old bugs and that kind of thing. So it's what we would normally have done in the due course of maintaining systems. So that's what that project is. So it's no massive changes to our current finance system, the information system. It's just upgrading it to a new version.
Okay, so everything will be in one place and be updated through that process.
Yep. So the data is nothing significantly has changed. It's moving from a computer in our server room to someone else's computer in the cloud. And it's a new version, but like you get an upgrade on your phone from a version to a new version. It's that sort of process. So for users, it's almost the same experience.
The very short answer to your question is no. It's not an automated system. We're not automating anything. We're improving some workflow. And to the other point that you raised about, will all of our information be in the same place? No. We've got a thing called Doris, which is our electronic document management and record system. So that keeps our written words. We've got some drive information, the file drives, like the C drive on your computer. And that stores a lot of our geographical information, our picture information, feeds from drones, that sort of stuff, because that doesn't work very well in SharePoint. And then the third thing that we've got in the cruiser's sense is a financial information system, and that's what Merlin is addressing. There's other systems that we've got that keep our asset information. So RAM is a system that we use to keep roading assets for Waka Kotahi. And then in addition to that, we've got another system which looks after our own roading assets and things like reserves information and that sort of stuff. So there's multiple systems that hold our information. What we're trying to do is make those systems as few as possible, and B, make those systems talk to one another as much as possible, because then you can automate things.
Okay, so my last question, if I may, through the chair. So when it comes to like policy manuals, will there be a place where our community can go to and look at what our policies are because of where we're implementing all these changes? Like at the minute, it's really hard to find data. And we know that with our agreement requests going up and up and up, that, we're not getting answers. We've got to look for things. Will this process help with that?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, but there's a couple of questions that you asked there. So our policies are in a single place at the moment, and it's not, the digital innovation program is not focusing on how we might change our website and how we might change the public availability of those. That's a decision for my new role. That's a decision for my new role about how we then expose that information to the public. And it is my intention that we put in place, it's in my current role, it's my intention that we put in place the systems that give us flexibility to offer more opportunity to the community in terms of how they can search for stuff themselves and how they can fulfill their own queries without having to ask us. The second part of your question about Lagoimas and how we have to search for them, that very much depends on the nature of the Lagoima and how it is asked, because we are not in the minds of the people that are asking it. So sometimes we have to make some assumptions on where we go to get specific bits of information and how we find it, and then what we provide as a consequence. And oftentimes what we find is we provide what we think is the full suite of information back to the requester to find that actually we've missed something that they wanted to get from us. So we are getting closer to having fewer repositories of information, which would make it easier to search, yes. With request, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, with request to your first question, Councillor, around the progress against the investment versus the budget, I'm going to draw your attention to 5.2, the financial year progress. That shows what our forecast versus actual was and the percentage of spend against budget. So the actual is the investment. The other thing is that through the governance process that we have in place, which each of the steering committees and the program governance, that gives us the opportunity to scrutinise that in much more detail. And what we're presenting here is a summary of the information which has gone before a number of different governance boards. We can provide that information, but it runs to pages and pages and pages in terms of our performance.
Thank you. Councillor Dowler, did you have a question?
More of a comment regarding my technical expertise. That's the phone. That's what I talk on. That's the computer which I do council stuff on. Last Friday night, after the Crusaders beat the Chiefs, yes. I dialed this thing up to start reading the reports for this week. Mr. Bitcan locked me out. By 10 o'clock that night, I was looking for a dark space to place this thing. So it consequently left me high and dry for yesterday when I came over to the wastewater situation, because I hadn't been able to read anything until I got upstairs to the girls to log me in again. So I just really annoying that I've been using that earlier in the day. I was getting the Bitcan, and then that night I couldn't access it for some reason. I don't know. Don't care actually, but
all right, we probably can't resolve that one in the meeting, but so I think thank you for raising it, Councillor Dowler. So thank you very much, Chris and Steve. We do have a resolution up there. Do we have a moved? Councillor Maru, seconded Councillor Kinnermont. So I shall put that resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That is carried. And thank you very much. I think, and could I invite committee member Starkey to do a closing karakia? Thank you.
E ngā atua manakitia mai mātou I runga tō mātou nei mahi, kia hau maru o mātou haere, me o mātou whānau whānui. Āmene.
Thank you very much. So I can't, 12:28. I've given you 2 minutes back since we were due to finish at 12:30. And we have a workshop starting at 1 o'clock on the representation review, and I understand the papers have now been uploaded for that. So yeah, for those of you attending that workshop, you can grab your sandwich and do your reading.